Yeah, I can hear you.
Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's well. Hope you're all staying safe. And welcome to the fourth session of the Homemaking Talk series. My name is Neil Nagwekar. I am the project lead of the Homemaker series at tellmeastory.biz. In the last session, that was the third session, we discussed a book called Civil Lines, which began about talking about a family and how they rebuild their home. But it moved on to a greater discussion about the Me Too movement, about the state of women in India today. Today's topic carries on from that thread, and the topic for today is seeking legal redressal for abused housewives. I must say from the outset that there is a small possibility that we'll be discussing sexual harassment or domestic violence, perhaps rape, so appropriate trigger warnings for the same. Right. My next speaker requires no introduction, but I will do my pitiful best anyway. Advocate Flavia Agnes is a legal scholar and women's rights lawyer with over 3 decades of experience. A pioneer of the women's movement, she has worked on issues of gender and law reform. She has provided an incisive analysis of several social trends and legal reforms, including domestic violence, sexual violence, minority law reforms, secularism, and human rights. Her autobiographical book, My Story, Our Story of Rebuilding Broken Lives, is an important marker of the women's movement. Her organization Majlis, which is what we'll mostly be discussing today, provides legal advocacy and litigation support to women and children from marginalized communities. Flavia, it's an honor to have you here. I hope everything's okay on your end.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. We apologize for the technical difficulties, which is why we came a few minutes late. And I think it's wise to just get started with the questions. I think, Flavia, we all agree on perhaps a surface level that we need to do something about domestic violence in India, mostly about women. But I think when it comes to the step-by-step legal procedures for a woman who is a victim, and for her to get legal redressal, perhaps it's wise to go step by step in this proceeding. So let's take the example of a woman who has been a victim for some amount of months, perhaps years, and she wishes to file a complaint of domestic violence. How does the first step look like for this woman?
Yeah, first thing is to come to terms with it that she wants to change the situation. Firstly, the change has to come from inside. That I need to seek help to change my situation. Then she will start looking for options. She'll ask people around her, what should I do? Firstly, acknowledge the problem. Secondly, show a desire to change the situation. These are very basic things. That's when the woman starts speaking about domestic violence. She approaches her relatives, community leaders, religious leaders. She goes to various places. She may even approach the police and file a complaint, etc. But after that, she wants to change the situation, then she will think of legal options, that what should I do. And that's when organization like ours come into play, where the woman actually comes for a legal consultancy and says, this is my problem and I want to change my situation, I want to stop this domestic violence. So
What are
this is one option. Or secondly, she may go to the police and she'll say, I want to file a complaint against my husband, I want to find a lawyer, I need to take the next step. So either of these avenues she may choose, and then she moves further. Now, moving further again, there are two steps she can take. One is to file for a civil injunction under the Domestic Violence Act. Now, here basically these are civil remedies, and where she can have a lawyer, she can state can appoint a protection officer for her to guide her through this process. So today, at least in Maharashtra, we have in every district protection officers, both at the district and the taluka level. And there are lots of NGOs who work on this issue, who may provide her the help that she requires to approach the court. So we come into that category of service providers to victims of domestic violence, and we
you know
guide her to approach the court.
you spoke about the initial stage, which is filing FIRs or filing a case with the police officers. I have some anecdotes of police officers who refuse to file an FIR even when it comes to a normal robbery or something of the sort. They want it in the record, so they try to convince you to not include it or something like that. What are the difficulties that these victims encounter, and how do Majlis help in this initial case filing process?
See, actually, the Domestic Violence Act is a civil remedy. It does not require the police to act. There's no filing of an FIR. What you do is you go to a protection officer through an NGO, or you can go directly, and the protection officer will fill up a form called DIR, Domestic Incident Report. This is like in filing an NC with the police, that you just record a brief history of violence and what exactly is the recent incident and what remedies is she seeking. Is she seeking a residence order, a maintenance order, a protection order, like an injunction restraining the husband from stopping to cause her violence? All these are civil remedies. It doesn't go through an FIR route at all.
All
Now
right.
here, what Majlis can do is two things. One is file directly in the court as a lawyer on behalf of the woman, or guide her to access the state machinery through the protection officer (PO), and through them fill up this DIR and submit it in the court. So this is the first step.
All right. In this uh, in this interim period between the filing of the case and, let's say, the first hearing, I'm sure that the victim must be subject to a lot of social stigma or a lot of perhaps a lot of discouragement. Could you expand on the role that Majlis plays in not only acting as a legal counsel but also the sociological aspect, this counseling aspect?
Actually, what we do is to build her confidence, assure her that we will be with her through this legal journey. Also, find out what are her other needs, what other kind of support she requires at this moment, including speaking to a counselor, including job options, skill training, any of this. Madlis, we don't do these ourselves, but we do it through reference. We refer them to the concerned NGO, which has an expertise in this. For instance, skill training, a re-entry program, etc. But basically to build her confidence that this is the right step she has taken. It is important that she approaches the court to get an order so that the violence stops. Now, because of all the adverse reports in the press, etc., women are extremely scared of approaching a lawyer or approaching the courts. So it's very important to build their confidence, to have faith in courts that something is going to happen in the court for the better. Her situation will change. So that is the extent of our counseling, where we explain the legal steps that she would have to take, the time frame within which this can happen, and that we will be representing her directly or through the PO. Now, once that happens, then along with the DIR, there are also like Form 1 and Form 2, which is part of the Act itself. So these forms have to be filled up and submitted in the court for your final reliefs as well as interim reliefs. And interim reliefs are same as the final reliefs. Like basically, you can ask for five things. You can ask for an injunction restraining the violence. You can ask for a residence order preventing the husband from throwing you out, husband, in laws, anybody from throwing you out, for maintenance, for compensation for the damages caused, and for custody of children. So these are the five kinds of relief that you are entitled to under the Act. Beyond that, if you want to file for divorce, then you have to go to family court and file a petition for divorce. But right now, like under the Domestic Violence Act, we are not filing for divorce. You're only filing for protection and for immediate interim release.
When it
So
comes to
that
domestic,
can take about 2 months. Uh, that's what the statute says. Within 2 months, you have to decide. Sometimes it takes longer if the court is vacant, there are other issues, etc. And husband has to be given notice. And as per that, the notice has to be given within 3 days, which seldom happens. But at least within 15 days, husband will be issued a notice. Husband will come to the court with his lawyer and file his reply to what she has filed. And after that, the judge will hear the case and pass the order.
You know, one of the forms of domestic violence, at least in my opinion, is marital rape. Yet, legally speaking, in India, there is no sort of specific provision for marital rape. I was wondering if there is a victim who's one of their grievances is that they are a victim of marital rape. I was wondering if there is still a way for them to get legal redressal for something like this.
Actually, this whole issue of marital rape is exaggerated. It's always in the press, media is always talking about it. But it does not say that, courts do not say, or the law does not say the husband has a right to rape her. What it says is it doesn't come under the rape law. But under the Domestic Violence Act, among the various incidents of cruelty is physical violence, emotional violence, economic violence, and sexual violence. So the sexual violence has many categories of sexual violence, including forced sex or not having sex with a woman at all, or insulting her and making her have unnatural sex, or causing a lot of physical violence while during the sexual act, or using the sexual act as a punishment. So according to me, there's a lot of sexual violence, but women seldom talk about it. What they talk about is physical violence, and they have medical reports to support it. There's a lot of physical violence in marriage. So according to me, this is a relationship between husband and wife with a very explicit consent of exclusive sexual access. So within a marriage, they're already having sex with this person, but that day husband may have forced sex on you, but he doesn't just force sex. He does a lot of other incidents of violence, including beating her, humiliating her, causing other kinds of violence and injury on her, and sexual violence. So, according to me, how we have rape, which is uh, for cases outside of marriage, like a father raping daughter, relatives raping daughter, or strangers raping, known person raping, gang rape, all these kind of things. They come within a category of abuse, where the abuse is like a one time or short term, etc. But here in marriage, you are in a long term relationship. There is economic dependency, there is emotional dependency. You are under the total control of this man. So into that, I feel that all kinds of violence is to be taken seriously, not just rape. So a lot of women will come to you. In fact, they underline the rape and they talk about various violence inflicted upon themselves and their children. So I would think that the violence happens at various levels, not providing economic support, not snatching the children away from her, or like causing extreme physical violence, like breaking a skull, or injuring her eyes, or breaking a spine. Now, various kind of things happen to this woman within that marriage, and forced sex is one of them. Okay, so I would think that inside marriage, for the woman, each and every aspect of this violence is important and serious enough, very grave. Uh, so to say that marital rape is not there, so hence that's the only form of cruelty that the woman is
It's
uh,
an oversimplification.
inflicted with, rather than to say that there's a whole bundle of violations that happen, and the Domestic Violence Act in a way addresses this. And in the Domestic Violence Act, you get a definition of what is cruelty. Within that, sexual violence also comes as cruelty, and also cruelty under 498E, that anti-dowry law. There is also a provision there. So these are the remedies that a woman has already, and in fact, not many women complain about it. Very, very few women actually complain about it. But it's more important that the women acknowledge that the husband has no right to her body. She has every right for the bodily integrity, and file a complaint against all this. So, I would think that in marriage you have to address injuries caused, harm caused to her, emotionally or physically or economically, and take all of them together, and that's very important.
Let's talk more about majlis, because there are legal remedies available for women, but it is at times hard to enforce them in court. And majlis does really good work in doing things like that. I would like to know that in this journey for a victim, however long the journey may be, how do majlis help at every stage in helping the woman, say, stand in court and survive a cross examination, or helping a woman cope with social stigma and things like this?
See, with the law, we help in every way. With the social stigma, I feel that there are a lot of women going to court these days, and it's not unusual. The kind of stigma one experienced like 20, 30 years ago does not happen today. And of course, if the woman has confidence and she sees other women fighting for their rights, the same thing helps her to build her confidence. And we also need a court system that's far more effective, which we don't have today. The court procedure is so long, so tedious, so women get fed up. So if we get a quick order, and this can happen if you have an efficient lawyer, then you will at least get an interim order for your immediate relief. And what we do is to have client meetings, help the clients meet other women who are going through similar situation, which helps her to helps her to cope with the issue of social stigma. Things are much easier for the woman if she is got parental support. She's got close friends who are ready to support her. But even otherwise, when the woman is confident that she wants to move ahead, she'll always find some support or the other. Usually, women come with some relative or parents or friends when they approach the legal chamber. Very seldom they come alone.
No. All right. So after the filing of the case and after the preliminary hearings, there is there is the identification and the formalization of the issues on the table. In this identification process, are there any have you noticed any gaps in the system where
One is the
murderers?
main gap is delay, that the courts are inefficient, not functioning well, etc. But compared to other matters, DB matters, there's a more seriousness, and within the statute itself, time frames are given. So there is a pressure on the courts to not delay the matters too much. So this is a very positive thing. Um, but here, what I want to say is that for the women to sustain this fight, it's very important that they get maintenance from their husbands immediately. They get a residence order immediately. Thereby, they have feel certain security. So uh, once we are able to get that, a woman's confidence goes up, and then she's able to sustain this battle.
No. Uh, and I suppose I suppose there may be some cases where I suppose there may be some cases where there may be no clear evidence of domestic violence, because somewhat of these things tend to happen at home, you know, and a case might be an elaborate version of he said, she said. I was wondering what are the techniques you may use to prove domestic violence in court?
Actually, this is not a criminal case, so the degree of proof required is not very high. Today, there is a great receptivity among the judiciary that domestic violence would have happened. In legal language, you call preponderance of possibility. He has not given her money. He has caused physical injury. She's gone to the police or the hospital. There's some record of the injury caused, or generally abusive language, uh, or denying her basic facilities, etc. Now, domestic violence act is not a criminal statute. There's no punishment at the end of it unless you violate an order. It is a civil statute. A husband cannot come to court and say, I'm not caused a domestic violence. The court will say, well and good, but given understanding that you will not cause in the future. Or he is not provided maintenance. So he says, no, I have provided maintenance. This is fine, but put it in writing that this is the amount of maintenance you will grant to her every month. So there is nothing adverse that is happening here except that a court will protect her rights. It's not a law that is giving him punishment. So these are all very basic human rights, that he has to provide maintenance, he has to provide residence, she has to have access to her children. They're very, very basic rights and no one can deny it. So by saying that I've been providing, no harm is going to cause to him, but re-emphasizing that you must provide these. Now, once you say that in court and an order is passed, it becomes binding. And once you violate that order, then it becomes a criminal offense.
All right. This
So
entire
our
process.
basic premise that there will be an FIR, there will be evidence, she'll be on trial, she'll be cross-examined. All that doesn't happen actually. She has to go, she has to fill that form, that protection officer's report is there, who has already spoken to her. Based on that, the judge will pass the order.
All right. So between the initial case filing and the eventual order, how much time typically does it pass? Of course, it differs from case to case, but how much time would typically pass?
It depends on many, many factors.
Okay.
Strategy of the other side lawyer, strategy of the husband, courts being vacant, and orders are passed, various things. So you cannot see, under the statute there are time frames, but practically they are not implementable. So it is constantly upon the lawyer to press for orders. If the lawyer is very, very vigilant, and the husband has not come for one date, husband is lawyer not come for another date, then you can ask for ad interim order. Ad interim order without the husband being present, you can still get an order. So when a judge gives an order that on the next date I will pass the order, then automatically husband lawyer will appear and husband also will appear, because he doesn't want an ex parte order to be passed behind his back. So he would like to be present and argue. So these are pressure tactics that needs to be used so that the husband will and his lawyer will be available in the court and not
You know,
allowed to use these delaying tactics.
you know, I'm asking because there is a possibility that some of our listeners may be victims, and one day they may take the decision that they want to divorce or they want to take this matter to court. I just want to know how much how much time should they mentally prepare themselves for
At
that
least
this will take.
2 years for the entire journey, but your ad interim order can come within 2 months, and then the case will go on. But your remedy will come within the first 2 months to 3 months. It should come.
You know, of course, Majlis has worked with so many women who've gone through things like this. I I wanted to know that out of every 100 women who approach Majlis in the first instance and say that they want to file this case and they're seeking legal counsel, out of every 100 women, on an approximate, how many go the entire way to the legal process until the very end?
See, there are various ways in which there might be a dropout. The husband and wife may reconcile and file a consent terms before the court and agree to reside together and keep the case pending for a few months and then withdraw the case. Not immediately withdraw the case, because you never know how things will turn out, but wait for the things to turn out for the better. So that's one way. Another way is that couple may decide they will file a divorce by mutual consent. There is counseling is there, understanding is there between them that they don't want to continue this marriage. We will file a mutual consent divorce petition and get a formal divorce, and all the settlements will happen within that. So that's another way. And if both these things do not happen, But if a woman is not interested in following up the case, she may just tell the lawyer that I want to withdraw this case and I'm fed up of going to court every now and then. I don't want this case to continue. Maybe she is leaving town, maybe she is finding a job, going to court is inconvenient for her. So she says, I'm okay with what has happened so far, but now I don't want to pursue the case. And she may withdraw the case. So these things do happen. But overall, we think that about 60-70% of the women will see this through. And it is up to us, lawyers, to see that she doesn't drop out just like that without any order in her favor. Even dropping out, there has to be an order in her favor.
It's hard because if a person says that they are your client, you have to listen to your client, right? Beyond persuasion, there can't be any other tactic, I guess. But all the persuasion that Majlis does, all the preparation that Majlis does, the mock trial, the filing of the paperwork, the pressure tactics, all of this, all of the extra work that Majlis does. What is the difference in the conviction rate between Majlis and say the work of a generic lawyer?
Actually, we are an NGO. We function on grants, are not on the fees that the lawyers give. So if a woman is not able to pay, we do charge. We do charge as per their income levels, and we give them a lot of time to like pay that amount. But if somebody is really really poor, then we don't charge them at all. So that's a big difference because women are always scared of getting exploited by their own lawyer and also colluding with the other side lawyer, etc. So here, because you are part of an NGO and you are doing it not as a commercial practice, but you're doing it more as a cause for defense of women's rights, such things are not there. At least the woman is confident that my lawyer will not ditch me, take money from the other side and all. This is the basic difference between Madhis lawyers and other lawyers. There are other such NGOs who are doing this work. Madhis is not unique. When we started, we were unique and there was nobody else doing it. But today there are other NGOs, panel lawyers, etc. There are a lot of avenues, and there's also state legal aid for women. So the litigation is not too expensive unless you have certain hi-fi lawyers who are there only for the commercial gains of it and charge a lot of money, and that is basically for the upper strata of the society. But otherwise, it is not very expensive.
How many, I'm curious, how many organizations in India do this kind of meticulous social legal work that Majlis does?
What was your question?
Sorry, how many organizations in India
How many
do this?
organizations? Okay. See, we are exclusively women's rights organization. We are exclusively legal. We add social support, but primarily we are lawyers, and our whole aim is to convince this woman, explain to her the legal process, and ensure that she gets the legal rights in court. Now, there are a lot of NGOs who are doing other kinds, and they may have a legal aid through panel lawyers. Now, these panel lawyers do other kind of litigation, but also provide legal advice to the clients who approach this NGO. So that's a difference between being a panel lawyer and between the whole-time lawyer. So we evolve a lot of strategies. We do a lot of trainings to the judges, to the police, etc. We are there all the time. We publish books. We write articles on this. So there's a difference between doing other work and then also doing this to doing exclusively this. So that's the big difference. So there are a few NGOs in Bombay. There are, but other cities there are as well. But there are very few NGOs who do exclusively this.
All right.
Maybe in Delhi, maybe in like this one in Lucknow called Ali. There's few in Delhi, Bangalore, Chennai, Ahmedabad. The few.
All right. When it comes to divorce laws in family courts, in India there is this added layer of religion, where it's not only legal, but some religions they have their own laws with regards to marriage or divorce. Have Majlis encountered any problems in this twofold nature of handling religious laws as well as legal issues?
No, we have not encountered any problem on that count. And now we have been around for over 30 years. So we're quite well established and we have a reputation. So we're much stronger today.
30 years is a really long time. We've crossed the half an hour mark, but I think that it could ask for some closing comments. 30 years is a really long time. And in a country like India, it's so easy for people to just discourage the work you're doing when it comes because it's such a sensitive topic as even today. I was wondering, this is probably the only personal question I'll ask, that how do you manage to be so high functional, manage to cover so much in this 32 years, and manage to dispel all the naysayers and dispel all the moments of doubt?
We're committed to the work we do. We do it all the time. We don't do anything else. So it's our passion, it's our commitment. I've also like published law books from established legal publishers like Oxford University Press, etc. So the whole thing is what we do in court should be made public. So either through articles in newspapers or in academic journals, etc. And then also like informal publications, formal publications, so that the what we do in court is only like a laboratory experience, laboratory project. That how do you make the rights happen? That's not our entire focus. Our focus is to change the atmosphere in the courts. Our focus is to make the court space more gender just, so that women feel confident there, women are able to go there. And also our aim of litigation is to find the loopholes in the system and address them through the proper means by writing to the chief justice or other concerned authorities what exactly is going wrong and how to set it right. So that's why we do the litigation. So litigation is not our only aim.
Could
Because
you
we think it's part and parcel of this entire strategy of changing the atmosphere in the court and making it more gender just.
this is a
That's a long term.
this is a very pioneering thing and concept, changing the atmosphere of the court itself. I was wondering if you had an example, a relevant story or two in this regard, where you managed to change the atmosphere of the court. Of course, while maintaining anonymity.
Actually, I learned the hard way through trial and error. I was very sure that this is what I want to do as a lawyer, and not just do it as an individual, but as an organization. So, setting up the organization, making it into a public trust, getting the funding, having young lawyers to come and work with us as junior lawyers or law interns. That's been all been a long journey, and I learned it along the way. There was not no blueprint before me, but you learn through trial and error. You study the law, you find the legal adequate legal provisions, you argue it in the court, you get the favorable orders, then you feel then it goes on appeal, then you argue in the high court, and then the law gets established once there is a high court judgment. So that becomes a legal precedent which other people can follow. So that's been a cyclical journey over a period of time.
I think I speak for a lot of people when I say thank you, Flavia, for your service to humanity. And thank you for giving us the lowdown on the step-by-step procedures that the average abused Indian homemaker must take or can take that are readily available to them. Flavia is the founder of Majlis. You can find out more about that on majlislaw.com. That's majlislaw.com, Majlis. We will wind up now. I'd like to thank Flavia, first of all, for her time here today. Thank you, Flavia.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Neil, for having me. It's been
It's no
great,
worries.
and I enjoyed talking to you, a young entrepreneur who's concerned about issues of housewives or concerned about legal issues. It's very, very commendable, and I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you.
Honestly, people like us, Flavia, we can only bring people like you to the podium because you have done so much work that if, on a personal note, if I could do half the amount of work that you have, I would post about it every day. Anyway, I'd like to just end with a quick reminder that 10 Your Story calls for submissions on the story prompt Homemakers. If your story is good enough, it may be published via Amazon. Registrations are also open for the writing program season 3 in association with Simon and Schuster. Find the details for both on tellmeyourstory.biz. That's tellmeyourstory.biz. Our next session, which is on the 30th of August, is a solo discussion with author Awais Khan. Awais Khan is a novelist from Lahore. We will continue the discussion on the casual oppression of women, this time from a more literary viewpoint. We will explore the nature of conservative religious societies as recounted in his best-selling book, In the Company of Strangers. For now, Flavia and I will take a leave. Thank you everyone for being here. As always, stay well, stay safe. I'm Neil Nagwekar. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.